usual, I'm just going to hit record because if I don't, I'll sit here and figure out reasons why not to. So, if you have joined me for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Fran, and this is Fix It with Fran, where I talk about all things faith, family, food, and fun. So this will go under the family files and faith. Not so much fun, but I'm getting back into that space. So I did another video that I shared on here like a while ago, like I guess pretty recent to when it happened. I mentioned in some other videos, just kind of alluded to the fact that I was going to start talking about my experience with fertility issues and trying to conceive and pregnancy loss and all of that. When I said that, I was pregnant again at one point and thought in my mind, because I hadn't, there's a little bit of a lag in videos, and I was vlogging things and kind of like keeping them in my files and then posting them whenever something came to mind or was really on my heart. And that's really where the faith piece comes into, because for me, I can get a stirring or an urging about something, and when I post things that are very personal or that are really on my heart, that is an act of faith and me really moving and stepping out on what I believe God is urging me to do. Because if it were just me or just about me, I wouldn't share it. And I say that because some stuff gets really personal. And because I am clearly, if you have not watched the videos, but if you have, clearly a very, very sensitive person. And these are things that you don't just talk about every day. So if it was just about me and my own plans and whatever for myself, I wouldn't share them because I wouldn't want to expose myself in that way. Let's be honest. So like the video that I shared that was recorded about like where I had been and what I had been up to and why I kind of been radio silent on most of my social media platforms, I shared because, again, one, accountability is a big thing for me. I don't like to tell people I'm going to do something or give my word and not at least acknowledge when I haven't done what I said I was going to do, acknowledge when I still have something that I need to do, and be accountable to folks who, not to say anybody was on pins and needles waiting for me to do my next step, but to me that matters. Being a woman of my word is something that's been important to me since I was a little kid. That's how I was raised. And I'm rambling a little bit, but I got notes, so I'm going to get it together. So when all this was happening, I mentioned too in another video that I was going to start doing some of my Bible study groups that I had done again. And it's an online platform. The group is called Love God Greatly. And I did studies before of like Ruth and Esther and like the Psalms and Ecclesiastes and all that, because they publish different ones and they share it. What I really loved was that they started doing the plans through the Bible app. So if you're not really a book person, like I'm kind of moving into trying to be more digital based and using my Kindle and things, but I've always liked the Bible app a lot, and I'll put a link for that in the comments or in the video, however I remember to edit it. And let me make a note. That's another thing I tell myself when I say things in the video. I need to remember to go back and do it. I'm so Bible app. So doing that plan and working through it, that was another reason that I shared my story, because I really, in doing the study right now, it's about, I think, peace over perfection. I may be calling it the wrong thing, but it is a study of Abraham and Isaac and Abraham's faith and everything that he and his wife Sarah went through in having a child. And what I hadn't shared was that long ago, like in 2016, when we were having issues conceiving, and then 2017, I think it was 2016, 2017, 22 years, when we had that first loss that only I knew about, I had done a plan on the Bible app that was like Sarah's infertility and like a devotional app. And I can't remember if it was like a year long or something, but that was one thing that helped me get through it. So even now for this new plan to come up, that when I said that I was going to do like some of the groups again, or at least share that, and I'll be sharing that in a later video, how the Bible study plan is and what the first week has been like, that kind of thing. I figure I'll do a recap this time. but I'm getting long-winded. When I started doing all that and I said that I set my intention of what I wanted to do, I did not know that the next plan was going to be about Abraham and Isaac. And on the trying to conceive and loss and infertility story, that to me, again, was like God giving me a little nudge, because my history of life, and it's a whole thing, like I actually went through a period where my name was spelled differently. Like people that I grew up with know me as Francina. And it feels weird to me to even say that, because from high school on, I've gone by Francinia. Funny story is that when I registered for school in elementary school, they spelled my name wrong. They spelled it Francina. Why? Because the lady that wrote my name in cursive on my immunization card spelled it wrong. I still have the card. I may try to stitch in a picture if I can find it. And when she did that, she spelled it without the I. And you can see on the card where she went in and tried to like add in the cursive I in front of the A. But it's easy to miss it if you don't know how to spell my name. And whenever my mom registered for me for school, this is what I'm told, apparently they spelled it wrong. And it was not really noticed or caught until I had been practicing writing my name in kindergarten. And at that point, the story that I remember my mom telling me, my mom probably gonna watch this and she may recall it differently. My mom told me this when I was 13. And we were literally, I remember this part, is that it was an icy day in North Carolina and church wasn't going to be opening. And for whatever reason, we were kind of just like sitting around talking, kind of joking back and forth. And my mom says to me, "That's why you don't know your name." And I was like, what are you talking about? The crazy thing is, like, you know, you have things to do at school and other things. I had pulled my birth certificate out of the family Bible before. It was spelled correctly on my birth certificate. Why did I never notice that it had an extra I in it? I don't know. And when she said it, I was like, what? She's like, "That's why you don't know how to spell your name." And I was like, what? And then she pulls my birth certificate out of the Bible. She's like, "You see how your name is spelled? Your name is Francina." And I was like, at this point, I'm 13 or 15. I was like, why did you never tell me this? And she goes, "Well, by the time I noticed that they were teaching you to spell it wrong, like you had been writing it for a while in kindergarten, and I didn't want to confuse you, so I just left it alone." So at that point, I was in high school, so I had to be like 15 or something. And when she told me this, after that, I went back to school and I went to the guidance office and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, my name is spelled wrong, woo, woo, woo. And at this point, like when I started school, it was like the 80s, okay? No, it wasn't, because I was 6 when I started school, so it would have been 91. Okay, so in 2001, 2002, modern technology, I go to the guidance office, and when I was in elementary school, I know they were doing everything still with typewriters. Like, that was the thing. I went into my guidance office. I told them my name was spelled wrong. I showed them the birth certificate. They went to the computer. They typed in an I. My name was changed. But that story is to help you understand why, when I was younger and was doing Bible study and using my New Living Translation Bible that I used to talk about a lot, that I still have, the story of Abram, who became Abraham, resonated with me. And I remember in that same time period, there was a shift happening in my life. Like, my faith was developing more, and it was my own faith and not just like my mama's faith or my grandma's faith or being around church because that's what I did and that's what I was supposed to do. It was definitely my own faith walk that I was embarking on. And for this to come up now in 2021, in the midst of everything that I'm going through with the loss, at that time, or let me back up a little bit. Like, back whenever we were getting test results and finding out that things were wrong and that it was likely that we would lose the baby between, they said, anywhere from 16 weeks to 22 weeks, we would possibly have a loss. Lost the baby at 17 weeks and 4 days. That's rough to say still. But I remember thinking, this is going to be one of the most significant walks of faith that I go through. I'm probably going to cry on this one, y'all, but it'll be okay. And what I was going to talk about was thoughts that you start to have when you're dealing with the loss or dealing with fetal issues. And I'm going to go ahead and say this part now because it's one of the things that I initially thought of, especially as it relates to faith, was not just the why is this happening to me, but the why is this happening to me when I've prayed for so many people, when I've prayed for so many other babies, when I've prayed for so many other pregnancies, when I've already been through what I feel like is enough. God, why would you do that to me? That's how I feel. And I'm going to be honest and say that because I know in my heart there's going to be somebody that sees this that's feeling the same way. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? And I remember saying to my mom that I felt like, what was the point? All of my life, I've tried to do the right thing. I've tried to do right by people. I don't start drama as much as I'm aware. I don't cause problems. I don't try to go back and forth with people. In my mind, I'm living by this moral code and I'm doing the right thing. So what was the point? What was the point in reading the books and doing the stuff and trying to be on the up and up? Not to say that, oh, you can have an act of perfection to reap whatever results you want in life, but really, nitty gritty, that's how I felt. It's like, I try to do right by people. I try to do the right thing. I'm harder on myself than anyone else could ever be. And why is this happening to me? Like, all I wanted was a healthy baby, no matter what it was. And I know other people feel that way or ask those kind of questions. And this Bible study that came up was helpful for me because one of the passages, like this week, Abraham was dealing with everything that he was dealing with and going into the land of the Canaanites and like people kind of coming for him and his family and then wanting to take his wife and then lying to tell them that his wife is his sister so that they won't seem like a threat or something that, you know, will bring them more harm. And he's trying to do right. Like, he's trying to do right even when he's afraid, and sometimes he kind of skews off from it. And that again resonated with me because it's like, that's how I feel. I may not be perfect. I may not do everything that someone else should think that I should do, but I try to be okay. And I'm about to look it up with my other phone because I want to refer to it correctly. And then I went through the feeling of, like I mentioned before, my background is in social work. I've been a social worker since 2011, so going on 10 years. I've worked with abused children, neglected children, children who've gone into the foster care system. And it's like, why do I have to lose a child when so many people have kids that they don't want or that they treat so badly? And it's just like, why did you have this child? That's a feeling that I experience. One of the worst feelings. Feeling like your body failed you. And again, like I said, I can be hard on myself, but part of that process is like wondering like what happened wrong, and was it at this phase, and like was it the vitamins? Did I pick the wrong vitamins? Did I pick the wrong supplement? Was there not enough folic acid? I don't know. And for me, like I mentioned, I was dealing with like getting my cancer screenings, and then I had COVID issues after having COVID. So I was having to go to the pulmonologist and the cardiologist. And there was one time, and this was very early on, and the doctors and I talked, and at first I was supposed to get a high-level scan, and I told them I was expecting, and they said, okay, well, it is early still, and we still really do feel like the benefits outweigh the risks of you doing the scan, and that there may be a rare chance that something could happen, and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, we were still early in the pregnancy, like early to the point where nobody knew. We might have gone to the first appointment already, but I don't think so. This was before 8 weeks even. So we might have still been in like meiosis phase. Like there was early, I don't know how early cell division, and I didn't look it up before this, so I can't give you a more accurate reference. But it was early, but I remember that was one of my first thoughts, like maybe I shouldn't have done that scan. Like, did that happen from this? I don't know. I think it probably was very early. So at that point, the risk probably wasn't there from that for this issue. But all that being said, you question yourself, and you question what you did, and you question your body, and you question
what it would be like going forward. That was one of the feelings that I had. And then, like I mentioned before, there's a feeling like you can't say anything. Because what do you say? And in my situation, what do you say when you're waiting to make an announcement until like the 3-month window? And when in that same window, you find out something is wrong and there's a potential for something to happen in the next coming weeks and months, and you're still in limbo. With the chemical pregnancies, like I mentioned, it was still so early. Nobody knew. Nothing had been announced. Like, what do you say when you're not showing? And for me and some of my other friends, like I've had people tell me that they had never heard of a chemical pregnancy until I mentioned it. And then they end up having one later on. Because I think most people, if you don't know about it, you might just think, oh, that test was negative, or maybe that test was wrong, or maybe I read it wrong, or maybe I was seeing a line that wasn't really there. No, play it. Like, if you're like me and you take multiple tests, and you take blue test, a red test, a pink test, whatever the test, like, that line was there. It was not a figment of your imagination. This time, having gone through that process with my physician was more comforting. Like, we didn't have it at the point of doing the, is it progesterone levels or whatever? Like, or HCG levels? Like, we didn't monitor at that point because right when I was supposed to have my 8-week appointment, yeah, the cycle started for the March loss. But I'm kind of rambling, but I just wanted to check back in and say that those are some of the thoughts that I had about pregnancy and pregnancy loss. And even in that phase, I did want to say this. Excuse me. When you're dealing with loss and still trying to conceive, even if you have a chemical pregnancy, like I said, for me in the beginning, that wasn't that big of a blow. And I almost even kind of dismissed it because it was early, whatever happened, I was still trusting my body more then. And I said to myself, well, you know, when you read about it a little bit, they'll tell you something was wrong during cell division or something else happened or it didn't implant right. So your body just kind of processes it like regular menstrual cycle and it's over. That to me was somewhat comforting because before I had ever gotten pregnant, thinking and wondering, can I get pregnant? At least they let me know, okay, it's working. My body's going to do what it needs to do. I don't have to have any kind of procedure done to like clear out my fallopian tubes. We're good. Then when I had Monica, it was like, oh, we good. Like when it's right, it's right. When it's wrong, it's wrong. Your body going to take care of it. To get to 17 weeks, and I know people have had losses after the fact of that, like at 20 and 22 weeks and even up to 40 weeks or had a stillbirth. I get it. But it was heavier this time to have them, I think, in like such quick succession, like right back to back. And then to have a baby that I felt moving. I felt bumping around. I had started to feel some of those initial kicks, I guess. It made that baby more real. But then it also made me acknowledge like there were other losses that I didn't really give much thought to, or that something happened so quickly after it that it was kind of easier to pick up and move on. And sometimes it's just not. And when you've had multiple losses, I'm sure many people can attest to this, it brings you back to the first blow and the second blow and now the third blow. I remember saying to my doctor, whew, I'm gonna get it out. At this point, I've lost more babies than I've had living. Or than I have living. What does that mean? I have 1 living child and 3 that did not see this side of earth or heaven. What does that mean? Yeah. Excuse me. I'm going to be processing that for a long time. That hurt has not lessened yet. Others have. And you get to a point where, excuse me, you need to grab a tissue. I thought I had some. I don't see it. 1 second. All right. You get to a point where you, at least for me, and again, everybody's experience is different. You may see this video, you may have had pregnancy loss, you may be having challenges trying to conceive, and it just doesn't hit you like that. Or it's more like water off the duck's back and you take it and you go. And I get that because initially that's how I was. But that thought that I've lost more babies than I've actually brought into this world hurts. Although I find myself in my process in dealing with that grief, acknowledging, at least mentally to myself, that they existed for whatever period of time they existed, for whatever phase of growth that they existed, however brief, however long it was that they existed, and it's okay. I've had moments when I've reached out to some of my close friends who know of the loss just to say, thank you for being there for me and helping me get through this. But even when I say with the faith piece, just like I've talked about faith before or in my blogs or different things, it's a walk. It's active. And this process of grief and thinking about trying to conceive again in the future is a process, and it's active. And some days, maybe days where you feel like I'm okay, like I'm ready to try again, I want to deal with whatever the risk is, and blah blah blah, and it's gonna be fine. And then other days you're just like, you know what, maybe my baby that I was blessed to have is gonna be an only child. And even the only child thing is funny. In this process, what I realized and noticed about myself, now maybe because I'm the social worker and I never liked people policing somebody else's womb or giving their opinions on that, but I could never stand it when people would say, oh, when you're gonna have that baby and when you're gonna have a kid and blah blah blah, because let's say you said that and it's the day after I just took a test and it's negative, or it's the month after I just lost the baby. And I told my husband, I said, the next time someone, friend, associate, office place, family even, says to me about having another baby, or when it's time, or what I should do, I'm just going to politely look at them and say, I have had 2 chemical pregnancies and a miscarriage, and I am not ready to do that yet. But if you have any thoughts or opinions or suggestions on how we can make this work, let me know. Because it may come out like that. It may come out like I've had 3 babies die and 1 is living. What do you think about that? Because I want to make it feel awkward. I want someone to realize that it's not okay for you to say what someone else is doing. And first of all, you're talking about somebody's bedroom experience. And for me and mine, I don't care or want to know what anybody is doing in the privacy of their bedroom or wherever else they decide to do what they decide to do. I don't want to know. I don't have a thought on it. And remember, in most cases, if a couple is naturally having a child, it's going down. Are you invited to that party? No. So why invite yourself to that conversation? It's how I feel. I don't comment on people's pregnancies unless it's someone whose pregnancy I've been invited to be a part of that journey. Nope. And it wasn't lost that did that to me. It's just me as a person having what I consider to be common decency and respect for people to let their business be their business. Now, that has very much so heightened and become more of my truth after having experienced the loss. Yeah, I'll say that because it's different. But I bring that up because it can be very triggering. It can be very hurtful. It can be very, I don't know, just inappropriate. And especially, like I said, if you're on a day when it's not going so well, where that is at the front of your mind, or where the struggle that you're having with trying to conceive, like, again, I was never diagnosed with infertility because when my doctor said, oh, if you wait another month and it'll be a year, then we'll talk. So I told Brandon, like, we're going to stop trying. Because if it's that fickle of a benchmark to say, oh, you've only tried for 11 months and not a year straight, or however many months that you've been trying, she just said, oh, the next month we'll talk about it. Keep trying. So we stopped. But I don't know. I may not post this one. I'll let it sit and simmer until God moves me otherwise. But yeah, that was my last point about just kind of sometimes feeling like you can't say anything, because when is it appropriate to say? If someone really asked about you having a child, a lot of times it's not in a way that makes you feel welcome to really share, or just places that aren't safe spaces that you feel comfortable in divulging that type of information. I have few friends that I know have said to me like, oh, I'm ovulating today, like we're going to try. When you tell someone something that intimate, like that's someone that you trust. And those are the same people that you might turn around with and be like, oh, it didn't work out, or we had a chemical pregnancy, or oh, we lost the baby. Because there's a certain level of support and follow up with that. Like if you feel, to me, if you feel comfortable enough telling somebody that, then those are the same people that are going to rally around you if you get results that aren't what you're expecting. Or you very quickly learn that they really weren't the people that you should have trusted that kind of information with, because some people just don't have the bandwidth to respond to that, or they don't respond well to emotional situations, or they just process differently. I can say this loss for me and my husband, processing has been different. He's not as sensitive as I am. Most men aren't. I remember seeing him like shed a tear at one of the doctor's appointments when we kind of knew that things were bad. And then after that, he said, you know, I just kind of process this as one of those situations where bad things happen to good people, but we'll get through it. And to some people that might sound dismissive, but again, being a social worker, you gotta give everybody space to process how they process. And knowing that person, because he's my husband, I know that means sometimes just making sure that our nighttime stuff with Monica is done and we stay on schedule, and that's support. Or a meal is cooked every day and we eat. That's support. Because even how I look now, and processing this and getting it back together, there were videos that were rougher than this that I tried to do. That it's going to be an act of God for real for me to post. But I remember, for whatever reason, in the midst of that process, the movie The Women of Brewster Place came to mind. And I thought about, what was it? Let's say, I had to get myself together because my nose keeps trying to run. Women of Brewster Place. I thought about the mom in that movie, can't remember the character's name, that had the baby. Now, if you've never watched Women of Brewster Place, like, it's one of my top 10 movies of all time. Like, when I think of Color Purple, The Color Purple, I think of the Women of Brewster Place. I remember watching that when I was younger. I remember, I don't know, that's just like part of my childhood nostalgia. Kind of traumatic of a movie, but you talking to the girl that was reading. I read How Stella Got Her Groove Back when I was in 5th grade. How'd that happen? My dad, when we would go to the grocery store, would always tell us we could pick out one thing. So I would go to the book aisle and get a puzzle book or a book to read. And I remember the book had this cover that was like a black lady with a beach hat on, straw hat, and it had a red ribbon on it that was like How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I thought, okay, again, sheltered childhood for the most part. I thought I was talking about dancing because she was dancing on the cover of the book. I really thought I was talking about dancing. Special kind of dancing it was talking about. But I like that movie too. I don't think it makes my top 10. But so that's to say, this movie, part of my childhood, remember it vividly. And there's a part where I should look it up, but I'm not going to because I'm going to finish now. We're getting towards 30 minutes. There's a part in it where there's a younger female who had a daughter and issues with her husband. And in them having an argument one day, the baby goes over and I think she sees, it's a dilapidated building, really broke down, really run down and not managed well, that they're living in an apartment building. And there's reasons why all the different women have arrived at Brewster Place. But her story was that she was there. She was a husband. He was a musician. He was actually a musician who I believe was living, as they call it, like a down low lifestyle where he was actually homosexual, but didn't reveal that, or it comes out later on, and really comes out more so if you've read the book, because Women of Brewster Place is also a novel and the movie was based on the book. To bring it all back full circle, I was watching that because at one point when I talk about my husband and support, I felt like there's part of the movie where her daughter is in the building. I think she sees a roach crawl into a socket, an electrical socket, and there's a pair of scissors on the table where they were cutting coupons. She goes, crawls over to the outlet. I think she bumped into the table. The scissors fall off the table. She takes the scissors and sees the roach crawl into the electrical socket. She crawls over there and sticks the scissors in the socket and is electrocuted. Now, they don't show that part, but you don't visually see her and what happens when she's electrocuted. You just hear a zapping sound, and I think the baby cries and then falls, and you hear the baby like thump to the ground. That was kind of a lot and getting real graphic of like, but I say that because after that happens, the character, who I can't remember her name, gets in the bed and does not get up. And in the beginning, that was how I felt. Like I was trying to stay in the bed, be still, not do too much, thinking that that would help or avoid the loss that they told us was impending. It didn't. But I felt the weight of how I can imagine that she felt. Alright, I just went ahead and got me a whole roll of tissue, so y'all gonna see me patting as needed. But I felt the weight of what I can imagine is what she felt. I mean, at least the character, because there were days when I just didn't want to get out of bed, and I just didn't get out of bed, and I just didn't move, and I took whatever sick leave I needed to take, and I told people like I wasn't okay, and I let myself have the feelings that I was having, and I would do my best to have all of my crying done before Monica got home, and I would just try to be a good mom for the 3-4 hours before she went to sleep. And I would come sit in whatever room and vent and process whatever feelings I had. My husband was a good support because when you talk about somebody coming back and blogging about faith, I told my husband I was done. I told my husband, I said, this can't be God. There can't be a God like this. I'm about to be agnostic. Like, this is it. I'm through. I'm finished. Me and God is done. Like, I don't want nothing to do with you. That was when we lost the baby. Before that, like I said, questioning myself, because it's like I've literally prayed for other people's babies, prayed for other people's pregnancies. And when I say prayed, I'm the kind of person that it's not just words and thoughts. If I say I'm praying for you and you're going through something, I pray like it's me in your shoes. I've had people who have had family members that were sick, moms, their cousins, their aunt, whomever. I pray like it's my mom. I pray like it's my cousin. I pray like it's my sibling. I pray like it was my baby. So when it actually is my baby, I'm like, why is my prayer not going through now? Why is my baby not being healed and saved and spared like all these other babies that I see now that are kids or teenagers or almost adults? And I'm not saying, oh, it was my prayer that did it, but it's like, I know I prayed and I knew other people were praying with me. So it's like, where's my result? Where's my miracle? But sometimes that's not God's plan. And I can sit here now and say that and be okay. I remember that one of the songs that came to mind to me randomly, and I think my grandma, for that maternal grandmother, was Mahalia Jackson. What is it? Lord, don't move this mountain. And I remember the lyric that randomly came to mind was that first part of the chorus where she says, Lord, don't move this mountain, just give me the strength to climb it. And it talks about how different trials and struggles that we go through can bring us closer to God, and that sometimes we face certain things because they're, I don't want to paraphrase this the wrong way, that if we don't have that trial, that we won't. Let me just look up the lyrics. It's something like, if you don't have that trial, then you won't see what you need to see, or something. Pause for the cause. All right, I had to look it up. It says, "We bring our cares to you, Lord. You promised that you would help those who help themselves, and I believe that you'll have mercy. Don't just give me the strength. Excuse me, Lord, don't move that mountain. Just give me the strength to climb. Don't move my stumbling block, but lead me around. The way may not be easy. You didn't say that it would be, but when our tribulations get too light, we tend to stray from thee," and ask him to have mercy. And like I said, being one of those people who doesn't go too far from being a rule follower, like that kind of does everything on the up and up, feeling like I ain't stray that much, I didn't do anything, but I was very much at a point where I was just really focused on my immediate unit, and purpose was something that was kind of sitting to the side for a little bit. Not really, that wasn't a focus, but it was something where I was letting most of my purpose be in being a mom and focusing on Monica and getting her what she needs. And talked a lot about purpose. Purpose is a big thing for me. I wasn't really pursuing what's next for me. What does this mean? Because I was just in a place of like routine, and everything was kind of mundane. This shook stuff up. It shook stuff up a lot. And I mentioned that movie and that character because when I watched it one day, I'd never really paid attention to how the movie ended other than them tearing down the wall. But it stood out to me because she shows back up the night of the big block party that they're having. And she's like flawless. And it's a far cry from where she was when she was literally just in bed and not eating or really getting any chicken broth that Oprah Winfrey's character was trying to feed to her. Like, Oprah had to get her and put her in the bath and wash her. Now, I wasn't that bad. I get up, I get ready, I get dressed, I do stuff. But it just felt so empty, and it just felt like I was going through the motions. But when she shows back up, she's like dressed to the nines, and her hair is perfection, and she has a true joy. And I'm getting to that point now. Like, I started going back to the hairdresser again because with COVID and everything, I had been going. And I have a regular appointment. And that's where, when I talk about self-care and different things like that, it's not even, oh, that it has to always be a spa day or a hair appointment. But it's taking out that time to really do something to make you feel a little bit better, to make you feel a little bit recharged. And that's me getting on a tangent. But when I looked at that the other day and saw how her character had really just bounced back, I feel like that's somewhat of the place and space that I'm in now. Like, I'm feeling more like myself. I'm getting up, I'm going around, I'm doing things. And when you're dealing with the initial loss and dealing with some of those first waves or different feelings that you have when you're trying to conceive and it's not going well, you almost feel like it's impossible for you to get to the other side of it, or like it'll always be that way. And I've said before in some other videos that I used to always say when I was going through a rough time that it's important to remember to know what you've always known, because it can be easy to forget what you've always known. I was doing another video, and I mentioned all these different videos that do exist, and I probably will post at some point. I was telling myself, if I don't get it together and stop crying, I ain't gonna post this one. But I think I'll be okay posting it, because even dealing with everything going on with Hurricane Ida, I had to remember, like, I've been through rough stuff. I may not look like it, I may not sound like it, but I've been through some rough stuff. And I've gotten to the other side of it. And I've been through some things that when they were going on, it felt like the end of the world. It felt like there would be no overcoming of it. And I'm still here. And I think that's kind of what my husband was getting at when he was telling me, like, we're going to get through it and we'll get to the other side. But I do tell myself I'll never forget them. And that is another part of me doing this and doing these videos, is to remember them. I'm not going to pause. I can get through this. To remember them in the sense that they existed. They mattered to me. I remember one time my husband was trying to comfort me and he said, it'll be okay. And I was not being mean, not being malicious. Excuse me. But I said to him, it'll never be okay. It'll never be the same. It'll never be okay. I literally feel like my life will never be okay again. If somebody may be watching this right now, you know exactly what that feeling was like. It won't be okay. It won't be how it was before you had that loss. But that doesn't mean it has to be bad. Like, there will be glory after this. There will be happy moments. But this kind of loss gives you an appreciation for so many things in life. Even though I may not look like it right now. Ooh, excuse me, y'all. I'm gonna have to edit that out. That was kind of dirty. Maybe I should do these kind of things as a podcast and just a voiceover and not show my face, because I don't, at this point in the foreseeable future, think that there will be a point where I talk about this at length without some tears being shed. So for the folks that can't hang with that you don't do emo, like, just probably skip these ones. And if I get to the point where I just do them on Friday, cool. I was going to, when I thought this was going to be a short video, stitched together with one of the ones where I was like really but I may not do that now because it's kind of long. I don't know how I'm going to end up editing this. It may end up chopped and screwed. I don't know. But those are the things I think about. I'll pray on it. So if this goes up and you make it to this point in the video, you are the recipient of an answered prayer, because it's a lot. It's a lot to process. It's one of those things where, as you can see with me, when you think you're okay, when you think you kind of like hunkered down and you can talk about it, it'll be all right. It won't be a fountain of emotion. They still come out, because it can be a word that's triggering. It can be a thought. It can be a feeling that comes back up that you hadn't felt in a while because you hadn't really thought about that subject. But we give yourself space, give yourself grace, give yourself time to heal, and knowing that this is one of those wounds that will leave a scar, but that scar will have its own beauty in it at some point. I guess I'll leave you with that. Lots of feelings this Friday, but it's all good. As I always say, this is Fix It with Fran, where I talk about all things faith, family, food, and fun. I always like to remind you, want to leave with you, that I truly believe God has given us all excuse me, gifts and talents that can fix some problem that exists in this world. And while we may not be able to fix everything, I do believe we can all fix something. So until next time, I pray that you would find that thing and fix it. Thanks for watching.